Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be building one of these gates without one of these or one of these. We're just going to be using two things, the old eyeball and the old soapstone. And hey, since it's Friday and a lot of you ask about what I charge for little jobs like this, we may talk about that at the end of this video. If you're new here, thanks for being here. My name's Austin Ross. I've been a welder for several years. Here on this channel, I share tips and tricks for rig welders. I did want to let you know about our website, arosswelding.com. You can get a quote for a project over there on our website. You can shop our online store, check out some of the digital prints that we have over there for some of the things that I use in my videos. Or if you're just getting into the welding scene and you're looking for a couple of basic tools lists, you can find several different tools lists under the resources tab over there on our website, also arosswelding.com. Lastly, I wanted to thank all of you who took the opportunity to enroll in the pipe fence course. We're looking forward to hearing how you like it, how you're getting along, what kind of value you're getting out of it. We also want to hear your feedback, good or bad. That's how we make things better, is by hearing from you, your experience, playing off of that and making it better. So let us know either in the comment section on the course website or in the comment section on this video. Let us know your thoughts on the course so far, or if you don't get to the course anytime soon and you want to give us feedback, again on the course website, or you can always text any type of feedback to 405-643-7176. One last thing, this question is for anybody watching this video. We want to hear from you. What type of online course or courses would you be interested in? Let us know in the comment section down below, or you can text course ideas to that same number, 405-643-7176. All right, so the goal for today was to put this old cattle guard in the driveway here and then build a gate to hang from the cattle guard. So the first thing that we did was tack some like 11 gauge or 1/8 thick sheet metal back on for the skirting of this cattle guard. For those of you who may not know, a cattle guard is to keep cattle from getting out of the pasture, but it allows the landowner to leave the gate open and drive back and forth. For example, if you're feeding every day or whatever and you just don't want to open the gate. If you travel that entrance frequently, a cattle guard is handy because you don't have to open a gate. All that to say, the skirting is to keep dirt from washing into the cattle guard, because if you get too much dirt over time, it'll fill up the cattle guard and the cattle will not abide by the cattle guard. They will just walk right across it because they have dirt to stand on. That's what the skirting's for, is to keep dirt from getting into the cattle guard, more or less, or up underneath the cattle guard. Once all the skirting was on, I took the opportunity while my dirt guy was digging to clean my torch tip. This is not something that I've always done. I used to just stand around talking, or I don't know, drinking coffee. But the older I get, the more experienced I get, I find that it's handy to use your time wisely, and a clean torch tip is key, so why not use any downtime to clean your torch tip? Once the cattle guard was in place, we were ready to start building the gate. So on this particular gate, we didn't have any specific height that we were shooting for. We didn't have any specific length on our angled piece that we were putting in. Obviously, the only thing that we were concerned with was making sure the top main piece of this gate was wide enough to cover the entrance, cover the cattle guard. Other than that, we were just using what material we had. My dirt guy brought all this material, so obviously he had a rough idea of how much pipe he needed, but my goal was just to take what material I had and make it work. So to do that, I measured how long of pieces of pipe that we had, and then I just kind of made sure that I had enough to cover the length of the cattle guard, like the width of the cattle guard, and then the rest I was just, I just figured, I think I made the vertical piece of my gate roughly 3 foot, and then whatever I had left was the length of the angled piece. For this first coat down here at the bottom of our gate, I'm pretty sure I just more or less eyeballed this. This piece of pipe already had a little saddle in it, and I just notched the other saddle or throat directly across from the saddle that was already there. I notched it back. I can't remember a certain measurement. I literally think I just eyeballed it. I cut it, trimmed it, got it fitting decent by putting the piece of pipe on top of the other one, like where it was going to be living. And once I got this cope fitting pretty decent, I went down to the other end, made sure the first cope was still lined up down yonder, And then I laid this other end on top of the pipe, and I took my soapstone and marked right up underneath it. I pulled it back, transferred that mark to the other side, and then using my previous experience from building a couple of gates like this in the past, I just kind of sketched out what I kind of thought it needed, and then I just cut it and fit it. I don't know, but I did have to go back and trim out the throat a little bit and trim a couple little areas to get it fitting good. And then to get it fitting even better, I hit it with a grinder. And then I was ready to fit everything up, weld it out. I used 532 8010 to weld all this out, but you could use 6010 would be just as well. So before we hung the gate, we actually put a piece of 2 7/8 onto the cattle guard itself because the H-braces that were here were not sturdy at all. So we wanted to hang the gate from a post that was welded to the cattle guard. So I used 532 80 again, there again, 8010, but 6010 would work just as well to kind of fill any gaps that I may have had on the bottom of my post here. But then I used 332 7018 to cap, if you will, put a cap on my, my post there at the bottom. We then put a couple of gussets on our post just to sturdy it up even more. We used, if I remember right, it was roughly 3/4 of an inch thick plate. The key to cutting any thick material like this is lots of preheat. So I preheated the bottom, preheated the top, took my time and preheated it real good. And then I was using a 1/0 size of tip in my small torch here. And I just nice and easy made my cut. Of course, my tip was clean because I cleaned it earlier, and it cut surprisingly good. But I think the key was preheating it. I used the same welding procedure, if you will. I used 532 8010 to fill any gaps on my gussets, and then I used 332 7018 to go over the 8010. Lastly, all I had to do was build a couple of hinges out of some 2 7/8 pipe to go up over the 2 3/8 pipe gate that we had, and I took some 3/8 by 1 inch flat and welded to the hinge that I cut out of 2 7/8 pipe. That just gave us a little bit of distance there to weld. That way we didn't have to weld the pipe straight to pipe. You know, you got pipe and pipe together, you got big old grooves you got to weld in versus putting a plate in there. You just one weld, one weld, one weld, one weld, and you're done. I welded these hinges with 332 7018. Last thing to do was just set up the gate jacks and hang our gate. There we have it. Gates hung. Put some gussets in there. Another little old farm project. Sewed up. I like to call this type of project a freestyle project. What I mean by that is the reason that I didn't have to use an angle finder on this particular project is because we didn't have a certain measurement or angle that we were trying to match, or we didn't have any type of goal in mind as far as an angle or a measurement or whatnot. So we were just able to use what we had. Whatever material we had determined the angle. Versus gates that you may have seen me build in previous videos, we've had a certain measurement that we were trying to meet, so therefore it's worth it to take the time to either draw on a CAD program or draw on the concrete like you may have seen me do, to get all your measurements and then find your angle from the drawing, etc. So that's kind of the difference, just to point out why I didn't have to use an angle finder. Obviously there's things to be learned from freestyling. I think freestyling is good whenever you're starting out because you're getting a lot of just hands-on, like using your torch, welding. Like that's very important, I think, when starting out, is just studying your puddle. You can't study your puddle too much. I say that all the time. But then over time, work on your math skills or your laying out skills. But you're never going to be wasting your time. You're not going to be missing out as long as you're welding every day or very often. You don't have to be using that part of your brain that thinks ahead. You know, you can be gaining experience just in welding every day. So these freestyle projects are nice for that, because no harm, no foul. If you don't get something a certain measurement, it's not a big deal. You know, you're just welding and you're getting practice coping. That's what I love about these projects, is I learned so much about copes, because I'm not worried about as many variables. I'm not worried about the angle. I'm not worried about the measurement. I'm just worried about getting my cope right. So therefore I'm learning about that cope in that moment, if that makes sense. My whole point is there's value in all aspects of the welding trade. Don't think just because you're not building a high dollar gate that, the angle's got to be perfect and all this stuff, that you're not doing something worthwhile. You're still gaining experience. So an example that I can use personally is all my years of welding on pipeline jobs. Whenever I was pipeline welding, I was not always exercising the side of my brain that thinks numbers or thinks logistics. The biggest logistics that I had to think about was driving 20 hours, taking a test, and then welding the pipe. After I took my test, the only thing I was concerned with, for the most part, is making clean welds, right? I got in such a habit of doing that year after year. We would leave home, be gone for 6 to 10 months a year, and I would come home, and if I ever had any project around here, the longer I did that, every time I come home and wanted to do a project for myself, it took me a minute to get my mind back in numbers mode or logistic mode or thinking mode. So that was kind of aggravating for me, because I like challenging my brain. But what it done, the positive to that, welding on the pipeline for all them years, I got so much dedicated time to study that puddle, to work on my torch skills, cutting the branch, and work on putting bevels on pipe with a band and crawler or a beveling machine. I got so much experience with hands-on, with studying the puddle, more or less. It's made me a better welder on fence because of all that dedicated welding time that I got on pipeline. So it wasn't wasted, even though I was frustrated kind of personally, because I kind of felt stupid sometimes whenever I come home, or I felt slower whenever it come to logistics or math or projects. But I was gaining so much experience reading that puddle that it wasn't a waste of time. That's kind of an example that I can use. These freestyle type projects are good because you're learning hand-eye coordination, I guess, with your welding, and you're practicing with your stick welding and stuff. So it's all valuable stuff. Just one is valuable on one side of the brain, and one's valuable for the other side of the brain, if you will. So anyway, one last thing. How much did I charge for a job like this? Well, interestingly enough, I actually traded this job. So don't get mad, hold on, I'll tell you what I would have charged. But I did want to mention what I did for this particular job. So this guy that I've done this work for on this project, he popped some holes for me on a previous project, and he wouldn't let me pay him for it. But it kept me from having to rent equipment. So I was like super grateful and I wanted to pay him, but he wouldn't let me pay him. So whenever he called me to come do this little half-a-day job that we did on this cattle guard, I thought to myself, this is a perfect opportunity for me to pay him back. So that's what I charged for this job, was a trade. Super valuable, super, super valuable. But if I were to charge for this type of job, I would have charged my hourly rate. And I don't share my hourly rate to the masses, like to all of you who watch, because I don't want that to influence you and your business, because to make a long story short, everybody's situation is different. But to give you a range, I think in a video that I have made in the past, I said anywhere from 65 to 100 and I thought, what did I say, $100 or $120 or something an hour. Like, that's a range, like what rig welders are getting paid. But it all depends on what you offer, where you're at, you know, what niche you're in, what you have to have. Like, there's a lot of things that go into how much you charge per hour. But my whole point is I would have charged my hourly rate times 6 or 7 hours, however long this took me today. And that's what I would have charged for this job. So, but I was happy to help him out because he helped me out tenfold. To me, it was worth it to go and trade my services out for this job, for him coming and popping them holes. So it's all in the deal. It's all in the deal. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to check out my website, arosswelding.com. Have an awesome weekend. Let us know what courses you would be interested in. And remember, learn something every day.